Om. Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karavavahe Tejasvinavaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. So welcome to today's talk on Bhaja Govindam. So this is our 6th talk. And we're going to start by chanting the first 6 verses that we have looked. So join me if you like. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukhren Karani. Mudha Jayi Dhanagama Trishna Guru Sadbudhi Manasi Vitrishna Yallabhase Nijakaramo Padam Vitam Dena Vinodaya Chitam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Nari Stanabharanabhidesham Deshvamagamohavesham Etanamam Savasati Vikaram Manasi Vichintaya Varam Varam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Nalini Dalagata Jalamati Taralam Tatvajivitamati Shaya Chapalam Vidhi Vyadya Vimanakrastam Lokam Shokahatam Cha Samastam Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Yavadavito Pajana Saktaha Tavannija Parivaro Raktaha Paschachivati Chara Chara Deve Patam Kopina Prachati Gehe Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Yavata Pavano Nivashati De Tavata Prachati Kushalamage Gatavati Vayo Deha Paye Haryabhyapyati tasamenakaye Bhaja Govindam Bhaja Govindam Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate Samprapte Sannihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukhren Karane Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukhren Karane. So, well, what we have seen so far is that our life problems for all of us arise because of wrong thinking. So, and what the first 6 verses tell us about the various facts of life about the limitations of accumulating wealth, that wealth and relationships do not give us eternal happiness, which is what we are all in the quest for. So life is full of sorrows, pains, diseases, etc. We have looked at how unpredictable or unsettled the nature of life is. So we looked at the beautiful metaphor of a flower, of a lotus flower. So we also went to see to see the nature of relationships. So in this world, so everything is based on a give and take, and that's the way it is. So once we have little or nothing to give, society neglects us or rejects us. And even though our family is very caring, but once we leave this body, we carry on our journey on our own. So the only constant presence throughout this very long journey, throughout several births, is Ishvara or Govinda, who is always by our side. So that's the only constant presence that we have. So in terms of our own thinking, and wrong thinking, we also think that we are this body. So why do we think this? Well, we think we are this body because wherever we go, the body goes. So, and we experience a lot of things within this body. So when the body has got an ailment, so we say we are unwell. I mean, the truth is, it's not us. It is the body that is unwell. It's not us. Okay, there is some problem with the body, not with us. So we experience life through the body, but we're not this body. It is like our vehicle. So let's say we have a car and we go everywhere in our car. So we do not call ourselves a Land Rover. Yeah, we do not identify with a car, even though we go in it everywhere, or a Golf. So we have enough discrimination to know that we are not the car. But because the body is so close to us, we mistake our identity with that of the body. But what happens the moment we go to sleep, we drop any identification with the body. So that's the first one that we drop. Okay, so when we are asleep, we don't feel limited by the body, by the time and space. If we have some pain, some disease, or whatever, we don't feel it. But once we are awake, then everything comes back again. So when we are asleep, we can run so fast, we can fly, we can do anything, and anything. You know, we might think we are getting on a train somewhere, and then we're getting off in a different country or continent altogether, and you know, all sorts of things happen. So people with excessive identification with the body give a disproportionate importance to the body. So we know that the body is very important. We need to look after it well, keep it clean, exercise, keep the body parts limbered and moving, keep the organs functioning. But we should know that this body is subject to the various modifications that happens in this world. So the body is born, then it grows, it decays, and then finally it drops, like everything in this world. So nothing can reverse this process. No anti-aging cream, no pill, nothing can reverse this process. Now we may think that, okay, I'm not the body, but I am the mind, because I'm thinking, therefore I am. So our emotions also manifest within the mind, and therefore we say, I am happy, I am sad, and I am angry. But really, these are all emotions, these are all states to do with the mind, but they are not me. And once we are in deep sleep, what happens is we drop identification with the mind also. So the mind is not present. And then what happens? So we have a glimpse of this experience of this self that we are. And when we wake up, only when we wake up. So when we wake up, we don't have any memory. The only thing we know is that we existed at that time. We were there. during that deep sleep, we were present. So we experience ourselves as existence without identifying with the body and the mind. So again, we get a glimpse of that pure existence, but when we wake up, all of a sudden we get identified with the mind and the senses, and then everything goes back to being normal. So we started today by saying that, you know, all our problems arise because of wrong thinking. So therefore, what Bhaja Govindam does is it attempts to expose this wrong thinking, but more importantly, it encourages us to think in the correct way. It gives us something that we need to focus our mind on. So it provides very useful advice to all of us. Every human being, irrespective of where we come from, can benefit from this advice. So this text, also the essence of this text really is to develop a rapport with Ishvara, the creator, and here is referred to as Govinda. So the advice is to serve Govinda, love Govinda, and realize Govinda. Know who we really are. And what we will find later on as well is that we are this our Govinda. It's the same Atman that manifests through us, that is everywhere, that is the same in each one of us here. So once we come to know this at an intellectual level, it becomes clear and life changes, and we can live in this world very happily in spite of whatever is going on around us. But once we come to know this at an experiential level, then what happens is we break this cycle of life and death. So irrespective of what happens, the message for us is to change our thinking and is to pursue this spiritual path, this that Shankaracharya is showing to us. So now we continue today with verse 7, where Shankaracharya goes on to talk about our life patterns. So let us chant this and then see whether it actually resonates with us at all. Bala stavata krida sakta taruna stavata taruni sakta vritha stavata chinta magna parame brahmani kopi na sakta bala stavata krida sakta taruna stavata taruni sakta vritha stavata chinta magna parame brahmani kopi na sakta. Okay, so this has got this word is slightly different to what I said. I mean, there are different variants of it, but the meaning is the same. And so we'll look at the meaning of this, and we'll see what we think. So, well, it says the literal meaning is so long as one is in one's childhood, one is attached to play, right? And then so long as one is in youth, one is attached to women, passion. So it applies to both sexes as usual. And so long as one is in old age, one is attached to anxiety. And yet no one, alas, has got time or is attached to the Supreme Brahman. Okay, so this feels true, right? Well, what it really means is that this is the story of our lives and those around us, whether we like it or not. So, you know, when this was composed, whenever Shankaracharya was here, we don't really know exactly, but some indication, but we're not too bothered about when. But whenever that was a long time ago, and nothing has changed, right? So we have had a lot of advance in technology, and we call ourselves whatever, but this is all exactly the same, right? So So we spend our childhood playing. So now adults spend a lot of time playing too. So adults play video games, board games, expensive, sophisticated games. So not just children, now adults do the same as well. But anyway, that's another story. So children get toys, play with them once or twice, and then gets bored and moves on to the rest, to the next one. So it is really fascinating to see how children learn while playing and how their imagination works. And you know, boredom is really a best friend for creativity for children, to let their imagination go, etc. But then this is not really what we're doing a lot nowadays, where there is a need to kind of feel that children needs to be occupied, to do things, etc., to be always doing things rather than just, you know, daydream, spend time doing nothing, inventing things, and you know, playing with really nothing much. You know, doesn't have to be anything very creative or very expensive. Then what happens in our youth, we're interested in romance, lust, and we enjoy the various pleasures of life. So music festivals, that's the season now, more sophisticated toys, different gender, same gender, all sorts of experiences that we want to engage in when we are young. But there is also responsibilities as well, looking after a family. And, you know, and people who are looking after a family sometimes are looking at both ends, children as well as elderly parents or something like that, or a mixture of things. So, and we're also, you know, in that sort of youth phase, interested in money, accumulating wealth as well. And time becomes money, a precious commodity. And that's how life goes for those in, you know, from working age till retirement, perhaps. You know, we'll call that all our youth, and this is essentially what happens. And then in all ways, in old age, everything becomes a little bit more complex. So we start getting worried about our health, about others' health. We worry about the future, our future, the future of the planet. We kind of parents worry about their children, their adult children's. They want their children to live life as they see fit. You know, they start sort of interfering, saying this is not what it was like in the good old days. And you know, all sorts of things happen, and anxiety is very much a characteristic of old age. And you know, when our health starts deteriorating as well, the simplest of tasks become an enterprise and become a real chore and a real project, as one of my teachers says. So, you know, so this is something that happens. So we really are extremely attached to this world, and there are all millions of things that captivate our attention. You know, there entertainment every time, there are things happening, the city that never sleeps, there's nightlife, entertainment, endless challenges that people undertake one after the other to get the buzz. So, you know, if you just look at any social media, so-and-so is doing a challenge, was raising money, and all sorts of things. I'm not saying they're not good, but I'm just saying that what happens is people want a buzz all the time and move from one thing that gives them a buzz to the next things that gives them a buzz, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next. So this is really how it is. And the internet is another thing these days, that where we spend hours scrolling. And also it kind of adds to the potential stimulus that we have at our fingertips. So we don't have to leave our couch to have access to all sorts of things nowadays. So in all this rat race, there is no time for people. So adults cannot have conversation with each other without their mobiles, or cannot have time for their children because they're too busy. And now, let alone think about reality, think about Ishvara and about the existential questions. So people are just really too bombarded and too busy going outwards that they're just happy to accept some things in life. And you know, some of the things that's most ludicrous that people kind of just accept, but then don't want to think. So here, what we're being encouraged to do is to take a step back from all this and think for ourselves. So we're not saying accept all this, but we're saying have a think, you know, just give yourself this chance to think. So when we kind of think, well, what we're thinking about is this reality, this Brahman, and the reason why is because it is the only thing that will give us eternal happiness. So, and again, I have said that a few times, but I will just say, you know, it is important. It is not a problem to engage in pleasures of this world. They are there to be enjoyed, but just to be aware of what our goal is. So once we're clear about our goal, then if we enjoy a little bit of these things or whatever, it's not necessarily a problem. It is just to know what is the purpose of life and why we are here. So walking the spiritual life, I mean, to know Brahman, to know the reality, we have to walk the spiritual life. And that actually takes courage, guts, and blessings. So all three. And I don't really know the difference between courage and guts, I think. But anyway, it sounds nice saying three things rather than two. So everyone is happy to be a follower. So it is just easy to follow things without having to stop and think. We have to realize that just because everyone is thinking in one particular way, that is the correct way. Okay, so majority doesn't dictate what is correct and what is wrong. Okay, so that is something that we have to bear in mind. And you know, so especially today where there's that pressure to conform to everything, you know, it is important to know that whatever everybody is saying, everybody you might think is clever is saying this and that, doesn't mean they are necessarily right. So to do something different actually takes determination, and one can feel quite alone on the spiritual path. So somehow society doesn't encourage us to pursue spirituality. You know, it is quite extraordinary, but that's not what we're encouraged to do. I mean, generally, I mean, our leaders, our governments certainly do not want us to be spiritual, do not want us to lead a spiritual life. Everybody's now, you know, interested in consumerism, capitalism, and that's the order of the day, and that's what people want. So, you know, so again, we are going against what society wants us to do, what the government wants us to do, etc. And that is quite brave. So the scriptures say that you know, this idea of being so far away from the spiritual path is characteristic of this age, of this era, where I might have used this word before, it's called Kali Yuga, or the age of Kali, where there is a lot of you know, where the attention is going outwards, and where people are going after accumulating wealth, after material wealth, rather than spiritual wealth, as probably what was the case in other eras. So essentially what this verse is kind of telling us is that at different stages of life, we get caught up in different things, and we fail to devote time to spirituality. So really there's no better time than now. You know, if we've got this urge or this interest in pursuing it, now is the time. Nobody is too old, nobody is too young, and there is no other time better than now to do this. So I wanted to share with you a little bit as well, another a stotram, which is like a series of verses that we chant, and I might have mentioned it before. It's called the Shiv Aparadha Kshama Stotram. So don't worry about the name, but what it says is that we'll look at this in a moment. So it is kind of resonate. It is written by Adi Shankaracharya ji again. So we can. I mean, the parallel is a lot between what we've seen and what this stotra says. So that's why I've kind of brought it in here. So what it says, it says it's praying to Shiva here. So Govinda, Shiva, everything is the Lord. So there's hundreds of thousands of names for the Lord, so it's saying here, so forgive me because I have actually forgotten you in my life, and it's that idea of being caught up. So I just thought it was good to sort of, now that you're getting used to this whiplash kind of language, thought you might see this, you might find this interesting as well. So I've not put the mantra, so if you want it, I can send you a link to it as well. But this is the translation of one of the verses. So it says, even before I saw the light of this world, my sins from previous births. So my sins here, we have to interpret, I mean, this is a translation which is not very correct. So it's not sins in the sense of things, it's just the results of actions. Okay, so it can be good, it can be bad, and I don't like that word sin here, but I've just copied and pasted. So I don't like the word sin because it has some connotation with other type of sins from other cultures, which is not what we're talking about here. So I saw the light of this world because of my past actions, from the results of the past actions from my previous births that I need to reap, essentially. So through which I've passed because of desire and the fruit of my deeds. Okay, so because we desire things and also because we've done things, then therefore we get the results, and that's why we've taken this shape. So punished me. So again, it's not really punished. Okay, so it's not that God is there deciding and it's not like that, but it's awarding the actions, if you like. Me, as I lay in my mother's womb, there I was boiled in the midst of filthy things. So who can describe the pain that afflicts the child in its mother's womb? So well, think about it. I mean, it's not something to to sort of put you off or anything like that, but it's just when you think about what the baby undergoes and what the mother undergoes as well, everything, it's not really all that pleasant, isn't it? I mean, obviously it's a real blessing, it's a real great thing, but it's also when you allow yourself to think of it in that way, it is not the most pleasant thing. So then the next verse goes on to say, in childhood, my suffering never came to an end. My body was covered with filth, and I craved for my mother's breasts. So a child has to cry any time. You don't really know, they can't say what the problem is. They go through all sorts of things, teething and everything. And over my body and limbs, I had no control. So probably they want to be running, but they can't even do anything. They can't, I was pursued by troublesome flies and mosquitoes. So all the things outside. Day and night, I cried with the pain of many an ailment. And forgetting thee, O Shankara, forgive me for my transgressions, that is, for not remembering you in any of these, because I was in too much pain, poor child. So then in youth, the venomous snakes of sounds, sight, taste, touch, and smell bit into my vitals and slew my discrimination. So this is wonderful. I mean, it's just, thinking of all our senses, while our senses are geared to go outside, And some of the Upanishads also talk about this, that, you know, the way we are made is for our senses to go outside. And it's a great thing. I mean, you know, we have to enjoy the pleasure of everything, but also it's talking here about how we can misuse all this pleasure, or how we get sort of possessed by them in some ways, or, you know, or driven by them totally. And that's why he's using the word venomous snake here, bit into my vitals and slew my discrimination. So, you know, so where I don't, well, they are just so strong and so powerful that I don't even know that they're just my senses, they're not me. And you know, what's my goal here? My goal is not to pursue all these pleasures. Some of them, that's fine, but then it's not, you know, that's not my goal. I was engrossed in the pleasures of wealth, sons, and a youthful wife. So as usual, this is all gender and everything. It's just the way it's written. Alas, my heart, bereft of the thought of Shiva, was filled with arrogance and pride. And so therefore, O Shiva, forgive me, I pray, for my transgressions. And then the final verse that I wanted to read, just because each one of them refers to that 7th verse that we've just seen in some ways. So now in old age, my senses have lost the power of proper judging and acting. So, you know, various senses get affected as the body ages. My body, though still not wholly bereft of life, is weak and senile from my afflictions, and from sins and illnesses and bereavements. So sins just means here from results of my karma. And illnesses, so that's bound to happen in old age, our own, people around us. And bereavements, also there's more likely to be bereavements the older we get, and that's something we touched on last week as well, well in the last class. But even now, my mind, instead of meditating on Shiva, runs after vain desires and hollow delusions. So again, it's just finishes with that beautiful line saying, "O Shiva, forgive me, I pray for my transgressions." So, so yeah, I just wanted to share this with you, and you can see the similarity with this verse. So this is, you know, there's one verse for each one of these three lines that we've got here. Okay, so now we can chant verse number 8. Kante kanta kaste putra samsaro ayatamativa vichitra kasya tvamba kuta ayata tatvam chintayata diha pratah. Kate kanta kaste putra samsaro ayamativa vichitra kasya tvamba kuta ayata tatvam chintaya tadiha pratah. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam Bhaja Mudhamate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Rakshati Dukran Karane, Nahi Rakshati Dukran Karane. So here the word translation of verse number 8 is, who is your wife, who is your son? Okay, so I think, well, this reads, who's your spouse, who is your partner, who is your offspring. Supremely wonderful indeed in this samsara, or is this samsara. So we'll talk about what the samsara is. And of whom are you? From where have you come? Oh, brother, think of that truth here. So samsara here means this cycle of, well, this birth, this world being here, our life in this world, living on a daily basis, with all its highs, up and lows and everything, being part of it. So family relations are truly wonderful. They're miracles of life. Two strangers come together, live in mutual love, respect, and grow together. But also family is a field of trial and test. It can be quite challenging, more challenging for some than others, and that's the way it is. The scriptures advocate space to grow and warns against attachment that leads to control, unhealthy attachment between partners, spouses, or children, whatever. So it says, you know, by all means, love, serve everyone. But here, what Shankaracharya Ji is trying to get us to do is to encourage us to think a little bit more about this. So, so who is our partner, our husband? You know, where does he come from? He's Mr. So-and-so's son. But then why was he born in that family? Why was he not born somewhere else? Why was he born on this continent or wherever continent he was born? Then he grew up, you got together. Why? How? What binds you? I mean, might have lovely stories to tell or not, but why is something that, you know, people would say chemistry, but what exactly is this chemistry? Why does it happen? And again, so once this happens, then what's next? Who knows? And you know, so one might leave before the other, might leave the body before the other, or whatever. So who knows? It's just kind of inviting us to think a little bit here. So if we think of our offspring, so let's say we think of our daughter, if we've got one. So she's only yours in this life. So you don't know where she comes from. You don't know her path. You don't know her past births. Well, she might have some features like you or the other parent, but comes pretty much with her own personality. Okay, and I think we've talked about this as well. And even people who have twins can say that, you know, the two children, even though they are born from the same parents, they are fed the same food, they've got the same nurture, everything, but they turn out to be very different sometimes. In most times they do, actually. And why is that? So thinking about this daughter of ours again, thinking in this birth, before becoming our daughter, what was she? She was a fetus. She comes from the food that we have assimilated. The food come from seeds and plants. And these are expressions of earth. So what is earth? Earth is one of the 5 elements. Where do the elements come from? And what Vedanta, what this philosophy tells us, is that everything is a manifestation of Ishvara. So this world is absolutely magical, fascinating. And where do we come from? How did we get here? Not just our daughter, ourselves as well. How were we born? Why were we born? Why are there so many human beings and creatures in this world? And what came first? Where are we going? What happens next? What is our duty? What should we do now? So these are all questions, and very often, you know, they are very difficult questions. They are mind-boggling questions that a lot of people, most people around us, are just happy to ignore and say, oh, it just happens. It's natural. It's normal. And, you know, just because, you know, it's all what nature gives us. But then nobody kind of say, but why, or wants to ask these questions. Or, you know, when these questions arise, they stop their train of thought there and say, oh, well, you know, I can't be wasting my time thinking about this. And so that is exactly what Shankaracharya Ji is asking us to do here. And Shankaracharya Ji here is talking to us out of love and compassion, no hidden agenda, saying, oh, brother, or sister in our case, think of the truth here. So think of these things. So essentially what this verse is saying is we have to take care of our temporary relationships. So don't go telling your children or whoever that, you know, they are temporary for you or whatever. That's not what we're saying, and that's probably will not be comprehended. But, you know, on our big several life journeys, all what we've got here are temporary relations. So we cherish them, we take care of them, we serve them, we love them, but we do not get lost just in that. So we need time to invest in the discovery of the self, who we really are. And so in the next verse, Shankaracharya talks about how we can ponder about these questions that we've just elaborated. So, so we're going to chant verse number 9 and make a start on verse number 9. Satsangatve nisangatvam, nisangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nishchalatatvam, nishchalatatve jivanamukti. Satsangatve nisangatvam, nisangatve nirmohatvam, nirmohatve nishchalatatvam, nishchalatatve jivanamukti. Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Govindam bhaja mudhamate, Govindam bhaja mudhamate. So we'll look at the word meaning here. So satsang means this first word here, satsang, means the company of people who are searching the truth. Sat means the truth and sang means company. So in company of people who are leading a spiritual life, who are good people, who are thinking about these things. So through the company of the good or people who are in search of the truth, there arises non-attachment. So non-attachment to various things in this world. And then once that's what being in this company gives us, non-attachment. Then once we get non-attachment, there arises freedom from delusion. So again, our wrong thinking gets corrected. And then once that happens, so once we've got this nischala tattvam, which is this state, and then there is immutable reality. Okay, so nischala tattvam means the reality, and nirmohatvam means this freedom from delusion, and then nisangatvam means this non-attachment. So there are these three things that we get by being in the company of good people or people who are thinking or walking the spiritual path. So really our problem is wrong thinking. That's what we started by saying again today. And our intellect binds us to this samsara, to this cycle of birth and death, and we can liberate ourselves. So we are as though under a hypnotic spell with regard to who we are and the reality and what is real and what is not real. So real here doesn't mean it exists, means real here means it doesn't change. It is here always. Okay. So again, satsang happens, so our encounter with the company of the good, or happens through the blessings, and also it happens from the results of our actions, and it happens from the samskara or the impressions that we have had from previously. So we've talked about this before. So if you're here today, this is not the first time that you've been hearing this. You've heard this in previous births, and you're sort of building on that. So all this happens. So why we need satsang, why we need to be listening. So the process of how this happens is, again, what we've talked about is it's like it's a three-way, it's a three things that happens, a bit sequentially, a bit together sometimes. But the first thing that we all do is we listen. And then once we're listening, or we start thinking. So if we just listen but do not think about this, then that's not going to be helpful. So we need time to think about what we're listening in these things from these people. And then once we've done that, then we need to meditate on that truth and experience that truth. So really, these are the 3 steps. So I mean, why we need satsang is because we need to change our thinking pattern, right? So if, well, we might have heard of the law of inertia, which kind of means that nothing happens unless there is an external force that causes things to change. So in the same way here, if we've been doing things in the same way all the time, we're going to get the same results that we've always had. But obviously, we want to change things. We want to experience things differently. We want to know certain things differently. So therefore, we need to take action, and we need to get ourselves to satsang to understand these things. So the way to think about satsang is that maybe it may be like a compass. It's always pointing to the north, unless you've got a broken one, but and that happens with satsang as well. But generally, so a compass would be pointing north, and it never makes a mistake. So in satsang, the subject matter is always about the truth, is about union with this reality, is understanding who we are, knowing our true and essential nature. So that's what that's what it does. So that's our north. And then just like a compass, so a compass doesn't show necessarily all the directions, it just points toward north. But once you know where north is, we can work out the rest of the directions. Yeah. So similarly here, sometimes what happens, so we get in satsang, we get pointers on our paths, we follow, and then we can sort of populate it a little bit the same. And one way to think about this is like, if we want to be drawing something, so our artist friend's not here today, but if we want to be drawing, let's say, a canvas, you might start with broad things on there, and then we create our own painting, things build up as we go on, and we beef it up, and we make it our own, we give it our own stamp, and we kind of follow it in a way that makes sense for us. And if you are an author, or if you like writing, it's the same. You get an idea, and you pointed towards something, or you get an inspiration, or whatever you get from outside, and then it just fills up. Similarly, our spiritual practice, we get pointed in various directions, and it is for us to kind of adapt and adjust it to how it fits with ourselves. And so to sort of talk about this idea of satsang and always pointing to the truth, and it's so some other beautiful examples that my teachers have used is sunflowers. So sunflowers are always pointing towards the sun, so it's the same. So also if you've been to a Hindu temple, if there is a statue of Shiva, there is very often a statue of Nandi. So that's a cow that is looking in the direction of Shiva always. So if you look, so very often the statue of Nandi is outside, and then it's pointing towards Shiva. So again, it's the same, that always pointing towards the truth. about what, that it's this steadiness, and this is what satsang is. So we have to be discriminative as well about what satsang is, and what, whether that is what is being spoken of. And so also satsang can be understood as the first step of the escalator. So where, you go on the first step of an escalator, so visualize one right now, and then that first steps become the second steps itself, and then the third steps, and then you get to the top. Then what happens when you're at the top? It almost pushes you out. It ejects you and say, okay, so now you have been supported, and now you can walk your path alone. Or, so really satsang is one of the most magnificent thing in this tradition, and it is such a blessing to be able to have access to them, and to make the most of them to help with our spiritual progress. So there's a lot more to say about satsang as well, and how we use it, but so I think we will finish here for today. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.